and welcome back to NCSY Pulse. We are powered by NCSY. I am John Ackerman. I am very excited about today's guest. It is really a pleasure for me to welcome Bari Mitzman, formerly Barry Fuchs, Regional President of New York NCSY. Also, I can say friend of the family, right? I feel like we have that. I can say like Barry, friend of the family, not just NCSY President. In fact, I think I was talking to Nechama, my wife, about this recently.
Yeah.
I think you were our first Shabbos guest. I'm pretty sure after we got married, you were like the first person ever. I think it was you and Casey Letterman, if I'm right.
Oh my, it's very probable.
Well, friend of the family, friend of the show, Bari Mitzman, currently of Las Vegas, Nevada, formerly of Brooklyn, New York, Marine Park. Yeah. But Bari, so nice to have you on the show. Welcome back to NCSY.
Well, I mean, there was a stint of NCSY West Coast before and after I got married. I was an advisor for the Portland chapter, post-seminary. And then I was like, wow, West Coast is so nice. You say hi to the mailman here. Like, we don't do that in Brooklyn. And then I was the advisor on a West Coast regional Shabbaton outside of the Las Vegas NCSY director's, room when he was giving a session. And then years later, when I moved to Nevada, he became my boss for a couple of years. So I was the assistant director for Las Vegas NCSY.
Very cool. So you're saying that Portland, Oregon, not the same as Brooklyn, New York.
Slightly different. Slightly different culture. Slightly different politeness levels.
Yeah.
Definitely different climate. What feels like 5 minutes ago, but also realistically was like over a decade ago.
Right. Well, we were just talking about before the show, you were telling me that you've already been living in Vegas for 10 years now, right? 9 years.
Yep. 9 years. Been married for almost 10.
Wow.
But we've been here. Our children were born here. They don't know much different. I mean, I've taken my daughter to Brooklyn about I want to say a year ago. And we were in a pizza store on Avenue M. And she was just like, Ima, there are so many Jews here.
So many Jews.
Because it's just not what she's accustomed to.
Right.
It's our community is definitely not as concentrated as, let's say Brooklyn, New York. But, a couple avenue blocks probably encompass the same amount of, families that our synagogue has. So,
Wow.
in the whole town. So it's very different. It's a welcome change for me. It's something that definitely helped me in my own well-being. I think the fast-pacedness and the pressure that I felt in New York, I needed a little bit of a reprieve from. But we moved here because my husband hated snow. And I said, okay, well, I wear wigs, so we can't have humidity. So that knocked out most of the country. And we looked into 2 different communities. We connected with a rabbi here who did college campus stuff and told us if the idea of living in Las Vegas excites you, don't move here. It did not. And we checked it out and loved it. We're about a 25-minute drive from the Strip. Not that we make that trip. We're just, it's so not even remotely interesting to the 2 homebodies that my husband and I are.
Okay, but it looks like you found your spot, which is good.
Yes.
And I am all in on no snow. I grew up in Minnesota, as you know. And
Minnesota.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's super embarrassing that I still have bits of the accent that kind of find their way in. But it's, my dad still lives there. And I tell him okay, I am happy to come visit you anytime, Dad. Anytime between April and Thanksgiving. And that's it. That's my calendar. I am not coming. I'm all done with 30 below zero. Actually, it's funny because, so like I said, I think you were one of the first Shabbos guests that Nechama and I had after we got married. I don't remember if we knew you or if you were at my wedding. I'm trying to like sort of like
I
reconcile
mean,
the
I
timeline.
knew Nechama for a long time.
Right, right.
She was my basketball coach when I
Oh
was in eighth
God.
grade, or was it seventh grade? And it was the cutest slash most pathetic little girls basketball team.
So we got married in January, which in New York is like cold, right? It's
Yeah.
it's not nice. It's cold. But the bad thing was that we got married here in January. That's not the bad thing. That was fine. That was good. Amazing.
I
And
gave you the like button.
Nechama, if you're listening, it was good. It was all good. And we went home to Minneapolis for Shava Brachos. And my in-laws came, everybody came, and it was 30 below zero. And that was not I think what you would call the ideal way to start a marriage is
Yeah.
to bring your whole family to 30 below zero weather. So,
Yeah.
so now I don't do that anymore because I learned that lesson.
Yeah.
So,
No, we checked out this community right after Pesach in 2016, and it was perfect, crisp, 80-degree, dry heat weather.
nice.
And then we moved in July, and it was probably around 110 degrees.
Oh my God.
And we said, oh, whoops. My daughter was born, it was 120 degrees.
Oh my God. When they say it's a dry heat, does that actually help you, or it's just like no? When
If it's
110,
above
it's 110.
105, it means nothing.
Oh my God.
But if it's below 105, it is still better than 90 degrees in New York.
Yeah, I hear that. The humid, gross, sticky.
Yes. So instead of getting all schwitzed, you literally turn purple and there's steam coming out. My children come from the backyard and I'm like, "Are you okay?" They're like, "Yeah, we're fine." I'm like, "Go take a freezing cold shower." And I'm like, "We're good." I'm like, "You look
Wow.
like a tomato. Just hydrate, please."
Wow. Okay. So
Yes. So we have
so
similar
Vegas.
visitation recommendations.
Okay.
Like now is like when the window's closing and then you don't come back till like October.
Okay. Well, we'll have to come visit sometime.
Not in those times if you want to go outdoors.
Okay. Duly noted. So Barry, let's rewind. I want to hear all about what you're doing now. I want to hear about, what you've been doing on social media as an influencer. I really want to hear and talk to you about your book. You wrote an amazing book called Akol Beseder, Finding My Way Back Home. So definitely want to delve into that. And I'm proud to say that I read the book and I really enjoyed it. And actually, I will tell you, I really appreciate it. I'm holding this up, which is great podcasting, by the way, but I'm holding up the thank you note that came with the book. So for those of you who are listening, sorry. But I really like that you included with the book a thank you note. I thought that was like a really nice touch. And so we're going to get to what it's like to be an author, what inspired you to write the book. But I want to start a little bit first with your time at NCSY because you're kind of an NCSY legend around here. I remember very clearly when you started. So you laugh, but like for us, we have like, for staff, we have eras that we kind of like mark by like the regional presidents. So we look back on that was like the Barry Fuchs era, and there was like, the Talia Weiss era, and you can kind of look back at the different presidents of regions, like, oh, remember those years. But when I say we, I mostly mean like me in my head when I'm just like remembering myself. But you were really a rock star with us, and I want to hear, I guess, from your perspective, what was it like getting involved, and how did NCSY impact your future success, and where sort of you find yourself now? So talk about, I guess, how you got started, and let's go from there.
So it's just funny that you just tied in Talia Weiss because I was Little Weiss in ninth grade. That was the name that I got that I took on with pride. And it's so funny because I actually got an order last night for the book from Talia.
That's amazing.
We're still in touch. And, there are those people from NCSY days that you don't let go of, or that I've reconnected with. Sometimes just in like oh my gosh, I haven't spoken to you in so long, what's new, or working in like a business capacity. And it's really nice connecting those dots. How did it go? Ninth grade, me and a bunch of other girls from my grade wanted to do something on a Saturday night. And we heard that, just a couple blocks from my house, there was an opportunity to get on a bus to go on a boat in dirty Sheepshead Bay.
Oh my God.
With a bunch of just teenagers, high school teenagers, and we were like, oh my God, we can hang out with people who are like older than us and with something to do on a Saturday night. That's so exciting. And there was no room for us. So instead we went back to, one of the girls' houses and probably watched a movie and ate junk food and went home and forgot about it.
Classic.
Then I got a call during basketball practice. Still didn't give up on basketball. Ninth grade.
Good.
Still didn't give up on basketball. And there was a call from a man who referred to himself as Nachum, who said, I am so sorry. You did not get on this bus. We did not calculate how many people were going to attend. We would like to invite you and your friends to an ice skating opportunity in Rockefeller Center Sunday, whenever in the world it was. And I was like, no big deal, but cool. Sure, why not? And it turns out that was a regional board event. So it was juniors and seniors. This was before sophomore representative. That was a great shtick, by the way. That was a great shtick. Sophomore rep. Oh, that was amazing. That made high school for me. But I got to meet these people who were kind and sincere and just like the best balance of weird. And I was like, oh, like they actually care about what I have to say. They think I'm interesting when all the time I second guess myself and I feel like people think I'm annoying and that I'm taking up too much space or I'm too loud or I'm too weird or I'm too whatever. Because I had that space where I could just be myself at camp. But then the rest of the 10 months of the year I'd go home and be like, contract. Like don't be too much. It's not really appreciated around here. And I found a place where people were like, no, like take up space, do your thing. And I was like, oh, okay. I actually write about this in my book in the Shvat chapter, where I, discovered in high school, like middle school I was not very secure in myself and my value. And, obviously that evolves as different struggles as you get older. But at that time, NCSY really looked like an inviting place for me to be myself in all of what that meant, in all of the weirdness and the loudness and the quirks that I had, and that positively fed off of other personalities. And I was like, okay, like I found a place where I feel safe. And I started going to the NCSY meetings, on Avenue U. And, we're recording this right before Shavuot. And I remember walking from Marine Park down to that shoal on, that was a decent walk. And then walking
I remember I was there.
and walking back in the morning. And it was just like so many of those experiences were highlights for me.
Right.
I feel like my first regional was when like Cal Zach was born or something. And like I just felt like this genuine joy for this family I barely knew. And I was like, wow! And everyone's like, wow! We're like, whoa. Looking back, it's like so sweet, but also like, what were you thinking? It was just such a special time. And I was hanging out with people of different ages. At that point it was people older than me, but then as I, progressed in grades, it was also people younger than me, people from different locations. I remember spending so many Shabbosim by other people's houses, other Shabbatons, connecting and befriending people who were in yeshiva, who were in public school, who, had very different upbringings than me, to the point where I was in seminary. This was at the point where like all of the holiness was so big that I was completely blind to all of the like physicality stuff. So I was dressed like out of like God knows what. Everyone just thought I was like a Mea Sharon local, like whatever. And then I see this guy who I was friends with in NCSY, who had a bunch of facial piercings and just looked like a punk. And I'm like walking to the hotel, and I see him and I go, no way. And he goes, no way. And everyone just looks at us like, what is this May Sharm girl doing with this punk guy right now? Like, what is happening? And it was this like, how are you? How is life? Oh my goodness, are you on a birthright trip? Like, what is happening? I'm in seminary. Like, it brought together so many different personalities from different backgrounds, and we just kind of connected and were able to be our authentic, weird selves. And I say weird in such a good way, because I think
Right.
everybody has that to them. And I think today's day and age, it's even harder to find those spaces where you can let that out, unless it's like
Right.
trendy and oh, you're the funny one on social media. I think it would be much harder. But you know, NCSY was definitely that safe space for me that also gave me this idea of like, you could be a leader. I was like, me? No. No. I'm the weird theater kid that like does the weird stuff. Like, I don't lead. I don't know. And then it was like, I'm in 12th grade, I'm regional president. I'm like, nah, let the other minions do it, it's fine. That's not regional president's position job. It was just so funny, like the way that things sort of evolved, and the confidence that NCSY gave me in my public speaking, in my ability to lead, to delegate, to connect with other people on multiple different levels, whether it's a silly thing or something more deep and meaningful. And let's be clear, like, I was struggling during that time, and I mean, you now know that.
Right.
You know, those who know me from then, who I've opened up to, know about that. At the same time, NCSY was my saving grace.
It's really, you know, we were talking about this a little bit offline the other day, and how, you know, from our perspective, we had Barry Fuchs comes in, and you're this like kinetic energy source for the whole New York NCSY. And, you know, from our perspective, you were just this like ray of light. And, you know, the other day, I think I texted you, I wish I would have known that there was a struggle, because I had no idea. Watching you from the outside was this, you know, this kid's coming in and she's got the full package, and she's confident and she's exciting, and all the kids like adore her. And, you know, you made a joke about sophomore rep, that we created this leadership position because we saw right away that when you were a freshman, we need to get you into our leadership cohort like, ASAP, because you were already kind of operating on a level of a kid who's a couple years older than you, and surpassing them. So from our perspective, this was like, wow, like this kid is like going places, and you were, but we didn't realize, you know, certainly I didn't realize that, you know, I think it's a good lesson for everybody. You don't know the struggle. You don't know what people are battling on the other side. You know, you see this facade, you see the brave face, you know, the personality, but you don't know what's really going on. I read your book. You talked about the boat ride, and I remember that night as well. You talk about how your side, your perspective, everything versus our perspective. First of all, it's thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for being somebody who can, I think, to continue to open this door for people to share their challenges is really, really, it's inspirational. And I think you do it in a way that it's like, look, you're really fun. You are really engaging. And also, you know, there was this other side to things, which is really incredible. Again, from our side, it was all amazing. We were like, oh, let's give Barry more stuff, because she can handle more, and she can do more. And look what she's accomplishing.
I needed it. I thrived off of it. And I think that when I was there, And when I was in NCSY mode, that's when I was able to be the Bari I wanted to be. Were there the
Right.
noises of, oh, she's probably so annoying? Do they like me? Did I just say something stupid? Whatever. Sure. That may have, but it was so much quieter when I was with my NCSY family. It's a more, after I got home or when I went
Right.
back to school or, but I also had that support after school. I remember in ninth grade, I lost one of my grandparents and I I was definitely trying to seek support and attention from a few of, my friends, and it was a cry for help. And these were, members of regional board. We were going out to like a baseball game, and I said something about how I was struggling and this and that, and like they went and got me a hot dog, and they were like, "Sit, eat, let's talk." Like, like these were like my older brothers and sisters, and it really like outside of NCSY as well. Like I had those friends, and I remember there's someone who from Staten Island that moved here, and I said something, and he said, everybody just wanted to be Barry Fuchs, and I said, and I just wanted to be anybody else.
Wow.
I had no clue how people saw me. I knew that I felt safe and comfortable to be who I was at my fullest capacity there. At the same time, I didn't see what other people saw. And I think it's when you have this narrative and the stories you tell yourself and the cities and galaxies that you build on those preconceived notions, it's very hard to break through that. But I had those safe spaces. I had those highlight points. And like I said, it was my anchor that really got me through. I don't know how high school would have been otherwise. I don't really want to think how much worse my mental health could have and likely would have been. And I know that some of my friends were also struggling in different ways, but I know that they also felt safe in NCSY. We felt safe with each other. Like it was a refuge for a lot of us.
Yeah, NCSY it's funny because it's many different things to many different people, and it functions as a safe haven, and it functions as sort of an incubator for people to really develop their personalities and their talents. It was so powerful what you just said is that, everybody wanted to be Barry Fuchs and Barry Fuchs wanted to be literally everybody else. What's interesting is that it is a place where you can come in and be sort of who you want to be. When you're in school, you're really in a box. You're really in a silo. You're really like class to class, thing to thing. And a school's job in many ways is to tell you, here's who you should be. Here's how you should be that person. One of the cool things about NCSY that I've found out over many years is that there are many different ways to tell your story. That's why I think there are so many different NCSY stories. Whether you're coming from public school or from Yeshiva Day School or from somewhere in between, everybody's NCSY story is unique versus in a school. Most people, depending on your school, your school story is fairly similar to everybody else in your school. But our stories are so rich in flavor that it really can be different for everybody. How would you say your time at NCSY, though, set you up for where you are now? Because you're an author, you're a social media influencer, you're a public speaker. You've really blossomed in a lot of ways. I don't want to say despite your struggles and your challenges, because I think from the outside, it looks like your challenges have fueled you. So it's almost like they gave rise to some of the success. But looking back, you mentioned that NCSY helped you with public speaking. What was the bridge like? You went from, obviously there were years in between. You went from being regional president, NCSY superstar advisor, to now somebody who uses her platform to do so much good for the Jewish community. Give us a little bit of a snapshot at how you transitioned and now, what this platform means to you in terms of being able to continue to tell your story.
Well, I think there was also a little in between that I didn't mention. The summer of 2014, I was an advisor on Euro Ice. And I was the clown, very much the clown. Papito did not know what to do with me. For anyone else who knows who Papito is, that is Rabbi Lashak.
Yeah.
Papito y wifey had no idea what to do with me. And then I said, Papito, like, I really want to, like, let me speak at Ebbing. And he was like, I'm not sure. He was like, I don't think that's a good idea. And I was like, I have years of training. And
Years.
I was like, just let me try. He's like, okay, okay. He goes, wow, Barrio, wow. He's like, I didn't think you could do it. I'm like, I have been training for this, sir. This is not my first rodeo. Like, I was able to, everyone thought I was the crazy whatever, and I was. But I also was able to tap into that more spiritual call to action, ebbing mode.
Yep.
And from there, I mean, I just felt comfortable. Before that, I was performing in front of co-ed audiences in plays and choirs and things like that. And, during my time in NCSY, I made that shift to no longer doing that, and found, an ability to perform using my voice in the form of speech. So I would, do that, and then that developed into me being called to run a challah bake in Louisville, Kentucky, not long after I moved to Nevada. It was a varied audience.
Wow.
And I was just like, yeah, sure, I could do it. That sounds fun. We didn't have it was just like a really fun opportunity. And then, moving here, and I kind of jumped into the education space. I was teaching for a while. I have my formal education is in education. So I was teaching in mostly special education schools or special education programs. So I was, in that educating space. And when I was employed by NCSY here in Nevada, my boss said, there's this thing called RFG. I'm like, I don't know what that is. So he said, it's called Request for Growth. It's basically a way for you to get a voucher to like help you with your professional development. I was like, I don't know what I need. He's like, listen, I'm, applying for Dropbox space. I need it for this and that. It could be a gym membership. It could be this. It could be that. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll try. So I asked them for clothes. I said, I'm going into all of these Jewish culture clubs across the Vegas Valley, and I need to not look like a loser. So, I mean, I'll share that on social media also, and like I can make a, modest fashion page, but that's my request for professional development.
Awesome.
And they approved. They said, go for it, send us the receipts. So it was like $250. So in From Girl Clothes, today that would be a single dress. But I was able to get a few things back then. And I was expecting my first child at the time, who's now almost 8. And my boss is like, I didn't get Dropbox space, but Barry got maternity clothes. Like, are you kidding me? So I still think it's hysterical. But I started posting my outfits, and I did that throughout, my pregnancy with my daughter. And then at a point, I was just trying to keep up, no one really told me what having a baby really means mentally, physically, physiologically, all of the things. And I was just kind of like, oh, so like I'm just supposed to keep going, right? Like keep posting outfits, keep doing mommy and me things, keep doing whatever, to a point where I was getting dressed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to take pictures and then like crash back on the couch.
Right.
And that was when I said, I can't keep this up. And I already had like it was a decent following. It wasn't, what's so frustrating is that there's this push for more and more and more on the internet. And like having 1,000 followers is a very, very big deal. Like there are 1,000 people who have chosen to see and hear what you are doing and what you have to say. And now it's like, oh, but I'm only at 1,000 followers. So I was saying that in a self-deprecating way, like, no, I had, roughly that amount. And like, that was very respectable. But also, to be fair, it was also because I knew a lot of people. NCSY introduces you to a lot of people. Going on summer programs
That's true.
introduces you to a lot of people. It's a joke when I went on Jolt. It was like, we're going to be stuck in Uganda. And they'll be like, oh, you know Barry? Okay. So, like, I was just connected and I just kind of broke. And I said, like, I can't keep this up anymore. Honestly, this has been so hard. I'm struggling. I have a newborn and I'm doing my best, but I getting dressed and posting and pretending everything's fine is not my best. And we're going to like shift things on here. And the response was really not what I expected. I thought it was going to be like, we're so disappointed in you. We're relying on you for all of your Torah portion ideas and all your modest fashion ideas. But where will we shop, Barry? Where will we shop?
Where will we
And it
shop?
was just like, thank you. Like my kid is 2 and I'm still struggling and you look like you have it all together. Like, thank you for making me feel more normal. And it's kind of been the shift ever since. Is like, oh, so people aren't looking for the perfectly curated. They're looking for a little glimmer of reality. And so I started sharing different things. You know, I always ran things by my husband and saying, what do you think about if I write an article about this? Or what do you think if I address this? And every time his response was, I think it could help a lot of people. And he's been the backbone to, you know, pretty much everything that I've done. He had no idea about anything NCSY. He did not grow up the same way. We both grew up in Brooklyn, but if we met back in the day, we would not even have seen each other. Like, it will not, like, we would have completely ignored each other's existence. He wouldn't look at me because I was a girl, and I wouldn't look at him because I'm like, I don't go for the black and white thing. And you know, we both evolved and changed and, you know, met at a Shabbos table under, you know, the introduction of his rabbi. After an advisor's wedding, by the way, an advisor I was very close with named Connie Davis. The
Oh, we know
uncle,
Connie Davis. Sure.
yes, the uncle of the groom was this rabbi, Rabbi Ben Sion Klatsko. And I introduced myself, letting him know that I was coming in like 2 months, but I knew there was going to be like 100 people there. Note, there were 120. And he, you know, thought of me for someone who, you know, was a regular at his house. And we now are inching towards our 10-year anniversary with 3 kids in tow. And I think that he's really helped me evolve, you know, this sort of thing. And the Hakol Beseder started from a companion, you know, in 2020. The world, you know, shut down. And while I
Right.
was going through my own existential crisis, I had this, oh, wait, people are going to be alone for the Pesach Seder. They need something, like, I want to do something for them. So I created a small compilation of different Torah ideas that I learned while I was in seminary that I gave over every single year since, no matter where I was in the world, which I was in many different places. And that evolved to more companions with other women contributing and sharing, with the whole theme being inspiration, empathy, and validation. And a couple of years ago, I don't know what compelled me. People are like, what was that aha moment? There was none. It was just kind of like, I think I'm supposed to write a book. Do I want to? Not particularly, no. But I think that I'm supposed to. Like, I
Uh-huh.
think this is what needs to happen. And I wrote a book and I submitted it to a publisher, and they said, this is great. We want to run with it. And I sent it to a friend of mine, and she said, this is great. Do you have a clinical editor? I said, what is that?
What's a clinical editor? Right.
Yeah, so essentially, I was introduced to Rachel Herkman, who is an LCSW, who also has spoken with many women and written their stories. And their stories are complex and deep and, you know, intersect with mental health and other very, you know, intense topics. And she essentially sat me down and said, like, what's your goal for this? You know, what do you want this to be? And after we kind of sat with it and then got those glasses on, there were so many things that I changed. I completely overhauled chapters. We went line by line to make sure that, what I'm saying isn't just overly giving of gushy, non-relevant information because it's, juicy, or something that sounds a little too preachy. But that was because I went through this lens of, okay, this is what I want to do. And then once I was like settled in that, and I stepped away from it for a few months and then came back, and I was like, ew, like that doesn't sound like me anymore either, because I was continuously working on myself and my mental health as well during that time. So there's like what I call the hot mess version that exists somewhere in Google Drive. And then there's the one that actually went to print that I chose to self-publish, not because I don't appreciate publishers, but because of the time-sensitive nature of getting it out by this past Pesach. It was something that I felt like I wanted and needed to do. It was, I had a baby, Hanukkah. He was not supposed to come yet. He was a little early. So Rachel and I kind of rushed to the finish line, like, post. I would be like, she's like, I'm in Israel. I'm like, great, I'm up feeding the baby. Let's finish this. And I just felt that Pesach was the right time. So I found a printer and shipped every copy out myself. Menucha Publishers was kind enough to take on distribution. So people have told me they've seen it in bookstores or, picked it up there. I actually, submitted an Israel print. So that is going to be ready for people listening whenever this comes out. It's going to be ready next week, which means after Shavuot. So
Perfect.
That's going to be, available there. And some of them are going to be purchased and some of them are going to be distributed to, Miluim wives or, women who are struggling in Israel at the moment. There's a lot going on there, and I wanted to get that out there for women who wanted it.
Wow, that is. I mean, I'm not even sure really what to say. First of all, thank you. Thank you for.
Sorry,
sharing
that was a lot, and I should have stopped.
No, it's good. I'm like sitting here like, and now the concept. No, no, that was tremendous. Listen, I'm sitting here looking at the book, and just for anybody listening, if you didn't catch it before, Akol Beseder, Finding My Way Back Home by Bari Mitzman. It's really a powerful read. And one of the things that I struggle with, Bari, reading the book, and I was like talking to my wife, who also knows you, as I'm reading it, and she's so curious, like, what is she saying? And first of all, it's funny because you write the way you speak. And some people do that. Some people don't do that. I do that also because I'm reading it in your voice. And so, like,
well, it's because you know me and you know my voice,
right. But it was
a
it's
little
funny.
squeakier back in the day, but
so you're saying that you're not exactly the same person you were in 9th grade when I met you, right?
Thank God.
Listen, you were amazing in 9th grade, so that should be fine. But I get that we grew up a little bit. But what I was, what I continuously struggle with here is, what would I have done differently? And I guess my question for you is, you were going through this struggle and you found this incredible outlet, publishing the book and using your social media as a place to help people. What should people know? What should I have known when you were in high school? Like what, you were in NCSY, you were clearly, now looking back on it, you had this struggle. What would you want to tell people? Hey, like, you need to know this, people who work in NCSY or people who work in schools or just people who want to know, like, maybe I have a friend, a child, a parent, a cousin, somebody in shul who's struggling with mental health. What do people need to know?
I think one of the biggest things is you're not gonna know unless they tell you. There were so many people who I just assumed were doing great. And they were the people that I looked up to that had this like, oh, you're amazing, you're perfect, nothing wrong with you, never change. Like, seems like everything in your life is great. And then they would share certain aspects, as we got closer, and I would say like, oh, like, I would not have known. And I think in today's day and age, we have the names for it. I don't think, you know, how many years has it been? Almost 20. I don't think we had the names for it. I
Right.
didn't have a name for it. And truth be told, I didn't know that the way that I thought was out of the ordinary. I assumed everybody thought this way. Therefore, I'm not any different than anybody else. So why would I share that if it's just the way everybody is? Like, I should just man up and deal with it, because doesn't everybody think this way? That wasn't until I was, how old was I? I was in my late 20s when I was told, people don't think this way. And this is after
Right.
having two children. I'm married with two children and being told, like, most people's brains don't work like this. And most people's views of God, of Judaism, of whatever, it's not normal. And I was like, oh, really? I think what people need to know is that you're really not necessarily gonna know.
Right.
And the way you interact with people is starting with that threshold of kindness and empathy, because people aren't just going to walk up to you. Well, some might, who knows, and just go like, hi, I'm whatever, and I have X, Y, and Z. Usually not how that goes. But I don't know, I feel like at some point in my NCSY career that probably happened. Who knows? But it's just going in with that assumption that most people are going to appreciate that empathy and validation. And I also think that if people, like you said, people go to NCSY for different reasons. And I know that for so many of me and my friends, it was a lifeline.
Right.
And we may not have shared what was going on in our own heads, in school, with family, with different things. Sometimes that may have come out due to certain situations or whatever, but you're not going to know until you do. And if you don't, then there's nothing to really do about it other than go into it knowing that kids need to feel seen, heard, respected, and treated with kindness. And I think that many of the staff members went into that doing that. And I think that the executive team, when I was there, did exactly what they were supposed to do. They saw what I could be, though I couldn't see it. They saw it and fostered an environment where those skills and those positive traits were able to thrive. Do I think that what else could you have done? That was exactly what I needed. And it made me understand, not necessarily believe, but understand what I could be capable of. And gave me the tools and the confidence to be like, yeah, no, I've done that before. I've been doing that since I'm 15. That's fine. We run a challah bake with 600 women. I've never done, yeah, it's fine. Have you ever been to Ebbing?
It's the same thing, right?
I got it. And just we had like these, true, they were trips. We'd call them like leadership trainings. And like, for me, they really were. Like, I was able to connect with other kids who were going through, kids stuff. But also, we would see each other and just be like, yeah, I see you. And that was more than enough for me. And that I tell so many people that NCSY was my lifeline. And I'm forever grateful.
Well, that's really wonderful. Thank you for saying that. You've told so many nice stories and really wonderful things about your time and your adventures with NCSY. You mentioned Rabbi Lashak before, who is a good friend of mine, friend of the show. I mean, I feel like Rabbi Lashak is one of those people who's he's friends with everyone he's ever met. Like, there's nobody who doesn't love Rabbi Lashak. Is there anybody else or still Rabbi Lashak that you'd like to thank for your time in NCSY. You know, one of the things that we like to do on NCSY Pulse is give people the opportunity to kind of look back and say, oh my goodness, you know, Rabbi Lashak, who lots of people mention him, made a huge impact on my life. And thank you, Rabbi Lashak. Is there anybody that you'd like to thank before we wrap up for helping you through your time at NCSY, or who particularly maybe impacted you in a way that helped position you to the success that you're experiencing now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I should like hold up like a little award and like try to say it as fast as possible. Um, but Khani Davis,
Yeah.
for my 16th birthday, she gave me an Anani, which is a compilation of different personal prayers. And I still use it to this day. And after she gave me my blessing to, you know, get married at her wedding, that's when I met the matchmaker who introduced me
Incredible.
to my husband. Nachum Zach, you, obviously.
Oh, thank you.
Mikey Ablabla. Rabbi Michael Alpala. I'll say it correctly.
Oh, friend
Dove
of the
Snow.
show, Mikey Albala. We
Yeah.
love Mikey.
Dove Snow
Yes.
was a huge part. There were a lot of people. I mean, Rabbi Zucker, Rabbi Moshe Zucker. I just remember he would call each and every one of us to remind us to go to learning every week. I remember one of my friends, Jessica, she would have this message, and it would go, "You have reached da 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 da, Jessica." And he would
Yes,
go,
I remember
"Jessica,
that.
it's Maish Zucker. Yay, Maish. Come to learning tonight, okay?" And I remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh my God.
Maish
I remember that.
Zucker. Yay, Maish. That's how he would send the message. I still remember somewhere in my parents' house there is a notebook of all of the notes that I took in an effort to get those hours to do the Israel trip, which never ended up happening,
Yeah.
but I had all of that learning under my belt. There were so many people during, you know, my time there that really made an impact on me. You know, even just, you know, the friends that I made there.
Yeah.
There was, you know, an amazing friend, Lizzie Maxman, who I'm
Sure.
still in touch with.
Sure.
And I just
Lizzie.
remember, like, she, like, one Shabbaton, she said, "By the way, I was in Spain and I got something for you." And she got me, like, the most gorgeous bangle that I wore to death.
Wow.
And just a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, it literally has holes in it. I need to move on from it. But there were just so many different personalities and supports. I mean, the seniors when I was a freshman, they changed my life.
Yeah.
They made me feel like, oh, you're a little sister. Like, we'll, you know, take you to like our things, and oh, you want to go to a movie? Well, of course, like, you're a little sister, come. And I was speaking to one of those people a few years ago, and they said, and they were in 12th grade, and they go, "I was so immature. Why were you friends with me?" And I said, "'Cause you had a car."
Amazing.
But it was all in jest. Like, these were the people that made me feel like I had value as a person.
Yeah.
And it was something that I couldn't inherently, you know, keep up myself. And it's because of not even just the staff, though the staff was absolutely incredible, but, you know, the staff, the advisors, and the actual NCSYers themselves. Like, had it not been, you know, who knows if I went to, you know, the boat event, if I would have come back.
Right.
It was the regional board that took me in.
Yep.
And it was you and Nachum that took me in and was like, "Here, come, lost bird. Like we'll take you, we'll keep you. It's okay." And it set me on a trajectory to really understand that I did have the capability to lead if I chose to.
Outstanding. You know who is amazing? It's funny because you're telling me all these stories and everything's coming back to me. It's like I'm remembering it like it was yesterday. But when you were on regional board, and I'm trying to remember if she was a senior. I think she was when you were a freshman. But who was like the best at bringing people in and just finding people was Simi Kaminsky. Now Simi Spector. But Simi was like the queen. She was so I don't know if you ever knew this. I had sometimes go-to people that I would say, okay, we have new kids, go be the magnet, go get them. And Simi was like my go-to. There's the new batch. There's the new group of kids who like don't know anybody or don't know what's going on. And Simi would like walk around like she was the mayor of NCSY. And it was like watching her work was, sometimes they'll say like, let them cook. Like
Yeah.
she would cook on the Shabbaton. She was like amazing at just going out to people and making them feel like they've been there forever.
Yeah, I mean, I was just Freshie to her. She'd be like, Freshie, go longer. I'd be like, shut up, Simi. She'd be like, okay. And like I've seen her since, and I've seen Donnie Spector since, because they have siblings that live here, which is really fun.
Yep.
And that also reminds me that people like Gavi Hoffman, who would also just take me in for Shabbos when I was like, I don't want to be home. Like, I want to be out of Brooklyn. I want to be out of like my head. I want to be out of whatever. Like, I would go to Gavi a lot. I would go like Queens. Either I would take the train and the bus, or I would ask Alan Wittert to drive me.
Alan, same birthday. We share the same birthday, me and Alan.
And I just remember, I think you drove me once.
Probably.
And we drove past a store called 99 Cents or More or Less.
Yes, I remember this.
Always remember that place.
Oh my God.
Like, we are a store, and things are either above or below. I'm like, who even? And I still tell that story. I'm like, so there's this like back way to drive to Queens, okay?
I remember. It was like off the Jackie, right? The Jackie Robinson Parkway. I remember that. Wow.
It was like when we take the side streets, because taking the VQE was too much.
Yeah.
There was too much traffic. And I just remember there were NCSYers who were just like, no, like you're not gonna take the train back on a Saturday night. I'm gonna drive you home. Or, it was just, or we'd go like, oh, we're all going to Queens for Shabbos. Let's all go on the train. And it was just something I so looked forward to. And it like just being hosted was such a blessing. Just being able to go to those people when it wasn't a Shabbaton, when it wasn't a regional. Right. Like, what about the Shabbosim in between, There was actually, I just reconnected with Ben Volkowitz.
Oh, wow.
From Staten Island, yes.
Yeah.
They were in Nevada vacationing, and I actually befriended his wife. She was like, I remember when you were so little, and da-da-da-da-da, and we were on that NCSY Shabbosim together. And, like, we hung out at my house. And it was so weird and so good at the same time. And I was like, yeah, a lot has changed since then. That's like, what, like 19 years ago?
Oh, my God.
And it's fun to see, how people have grown and developed, and, where people end up. And I love reconnecting with all of these people. I'm a little like, do they remember me being my, like, squeaky 14-year-old self? Like, it's also okay, because we grow and we change. But it's always nice to reconnect randomly, or people are coming to visit town, or I run into them if I'm in New York, or with this book, right. there were people who read it, who were like, I can't wait to read it. I'm like, anything I should know before. And I told some of the NCSY people, check out Shvat, like read the Shvat chapter, like, it talks about NCSY. And then there was a rabbi who actually gave, a beautiful letter in the beginning of the book, and he's, the rabbi now of the shul on Avenue U. And it's like so poetic that I'm talking about like Shavuot. Wow. Being in that shul. Goes, yeah, that's my shul. We actually redid the basement. It looks a lot nicer now. And he sent me a picture.
Yeah, I would hope so.
And like, I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe, like, it looks so nice. And yeah, having those, seniors who then became advisors, and then, becoming an advisor myself, and the knowledge that I had of my own struggles, I ended up kind of being a magnet to those people who were struggling mentally. So when I was an advisor on Give USA, or Euro Ice or, in Vegas or on West Coast, and, a kid was, struggling, they would be like, you're the one that gets it, don't you? And I'd be like, come here, baby. I'll take care of you. And it was an honor. And, I do use my platform not to, diagnose anyone, treat anyone. I'm not a mental health professional. But just to say, you can look like me. You can think I'm, the coolest thing since sliced bread, like we did in high school. But that's just, looks can be deceiving. And there's always a story. There's always something more beneath the surface. And, be kind and be gentle. And if you're interested in making that connection, find out. And I think that this book, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about the book. I still don't know how I feel. I've read it 1,000,000 times to look for edits and errors and footnote changes and everything. And like, now that I physically have it, I'm like,
right.
Nope. I can't. Like, I'm just, maybe in like a year, I'll be able to look at it and read it in that way. So I'm still kind of processing that this is out there for the world. But I do know that it's made a change. And my favorite thing is that I've had people message me and tell me, my husband saw it on the table and asked me what it was about. And I haven't been able to read it yet because he took it.
Amazing.
And I'm like, I love that for us. Like, that's fantastic. Please tell the mister that I'm like so happy and hope he enjoys.
Incredible.
Or the people that, when I went back and spoke at my seminary and then I connected with someone there and, then they bought the book and, they're speaking to me, or a family member speaks to me about it and say, you did X, Y, and Z and you spoke to my daughter, my sister, my cousin, my this, my that, and it, really helped them. And it's an honor and a privilege to do that. And I don't know if that would have come to fruition without the care, acceptance, and, nurturing that I got, just starting out as an awkward teenager in high school. So thank you. If any of the staff is listening that I didn't mention, because I am 5 months postpartum running on sleep regression sleep, then please just know that I thank you, genuinely. And anyone who's listening who is an old NCSY homie, please connect with me. It'll be so fun to see how like weird and awkward we were and like remember funny things. Thanks.
Wow. Bari, thank you so much. That was awesome. And what a trip. I don't want to say like what a trip down memory lane. It makes us sound so old. That's like an old people thing. I'm old. I'm definitely at old person stage, but you're definitely bringing up a lot of great stuff. And those were like the glory days. Those were a lot of fun. We did a lot of incredible things, and it was amazing to have you with us. And it's fun to bring you back and to be part of this again. And I just want to say thank you for your time, and thank you for what you're doing for the Jewish world. It really is a huge need, and you're a warrior. What you're doing is really needed, and it's appreciated. So thank you for everything, and thank you for joining the pod. It's great to have you.
Thanks for teaching me how to inspire the Jewish future.
I don't think I can take the credit for that, but we'll take the credit
group effort.
For the yeah, there you go, group effort and the post boat ride ice skating. So that we can sign up for. So Bari, thank you so much. Thank you for all your time. This has been NCSY Pulse. I'm John Ackerman. You can follow us on Instagram at NCSY Pulse, on YouTube at NCSY Pulse. Don't forget to pick up a copy of Hakol Beseder, Finding My Way Back Home. Bari Mitzman is on Instagram. Bari, what's your Instagram?
Barianna, Barianna. And the homies at NCSY know that that's not my real name.
You should follow Bari on Instagram, and check us back next week for the next episode of NCSY Pulse. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.